Hey everybody, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller along with Sam Ekstrom inside TCO Performance Center following the press conference of Za'Darius Smith, who joins the Minnesota Vikings to be their all-around pass rusher. He talked a lot about lining up in different places and how he's developed that skill and how he expects to carry it over here in Minnesota. And it seemed to me, Sam, like Za'Darius Smith was pretty darn excited about playing with Danielle Hunter as well, and the Vikings restructured Hunter's contract, so now they have one of the better pass rush duos in the NFL.
Yeah, and it sounds like Za'Darius Smith is planning to be just that. He's teamed up now with one of the other top pass rushers in the NFL. The two of them were actually the top two guys in terms of pressure back in 2019. Now they're playing with each other, and apparently they talked about this at a Pro Bowl a couple of years ago. That hey, let's play with each other someday, and now it's coming to fruition. He's excited to play Aaron Rodgers twice a year on the team that cut him last week. He's excited to play with Mike Pettin, one of the assistant coaches, and Mike Smith, two guys that he really respects. So it seems like he's pretty happy to be here, and probably happy that he got the contract he was looking for as well.
And I think that there's some offensive players who are happy that Za'Darius Smith is here as well. Now, last year, he was barely on the field. He had to work through a back injury that he had surgery on and didn't come back until the playoffs, and he talked about that recovery. But if he is back to 100%, he is one of the most dynamic players. And also what's interesting about Za'Darius Smith is that he is big. Like, he is not a tall, lanky guy that we would have seen the past group kind of enjoy. I guess maybe a comparison would be Everson Griffin in terms of his shape and the way he plays the game. Griffin didn't move around a lot, but he is such a powerful rusher that he can impact a lot of different parts of the game here. And as the Vikings look to take another step on defense after really struggling the last 2 years, this is a player who can have a instant impact and help Ed Donatel take a step forward from where they were.
Yeah, I liked his line about how because he can play all over the field, right side, left side, hand in the ground, standing up, he says in his words, pick the weak link and attack that. And when you have two players with Hunter and Smith of their caliber, you can always exploit a matchup. So that's going to give the Vikings a lot of flexibility on the defensive side. They'll be able to generate pressure with their front four or front three or front five. We're still learning the 3-4
front, whatever it's going to be.
The multiple front. They can still get pressure without needing to bring extra blitzers, which was the only way that they could apply pressure last year. Za'Darius Smith is someone that can literally get 10, 11, 12 pressures in a game. He's done that periodically in his career. So that's going to have a huge impact for the Vikings, who haven't had a couple of healthy edge rushers for full seasons since 2019. The last 2 years they've had Hunter hurt, Griffin's season was cut short, Yannick Ngakoue was traded. So they've been going the second half of these seasons with no pass rush essentially, and they're hoping to get a couple of guys off of injury in Hunter and Smith and finally get 17 games out of those players.
Now in the immediate, that is a big upgrade from what they had before. They're able now to develop some other players for the future. Janarius Robinson, Patrick Jones, guys who are clearly not ready last year. Robinson was out. Jones barely played. We saw a little bit of Kenny Willekes, but now those players can sink into a depth role, and it improves the defense right away. But there is a lot to still do. They made a decision here to keep Danielle Hunter instead of trading him away, taking the long-term type of route, and they bring in Za'Darius Smith. Again, it sort of says about the timeline that it's a win-now type of situation, that they want to make big jumps. But this uses most of their remaining cap space. And so now they still have other spots to fill on defense. The offensive line is still up in the air. What do we think they do to continue to improve this team after bringing in Za'Darius Smith?
Yeah, I mean, they might have reached the point where they have to start bargain hunting because they've played most of the available cards to clear up space. They have restructured Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith, Kirk Cousins, and Danielle Hunter. I think you could maybe play a card with Dalvin Cook, but I'm not sure you want to push money on a running back that far down the road. And you could maybe play a card on Eric Kendricks. I think those are probably the two least prudent players that you'd want to shift around money. So they might not have any options left. That means you're going to have to hunt for those starters that slip through the cracks in free agency. There's a lot of available corners, and some of them played very well last year and are still sitting on the market waiting in their mind to get paid. But if they don't get paid, they're going to eventually have to accept a lower deal. So the Vikings will have to find someone, of the Bashaud Breeland ilk, someone who is just sitting there available for a couple $1 million toward the end of the road. And I think they got to add help to their offensive line too. And typically there are players available, and maybe even a trade for someone of the Brett Jones or Mason Cole variety, someone who is kind of late in their contract, who doesn't cost very much, who might not have a spot on their team, but has starting experience. I think that's probably the best way to fill out this roster.
I think you make a great point that there are a lot of cornerbacks remaining in free agency, and I suppose Patrick Peterson would still be an option after the way he played last year, but with so many players available, that it does drive down the potential price. Now, last year, that route did not work very well for them. Mackenzie Alexander didn't play well, and Bashaud Breeland didn't even make it the entire season, so there is a lot of risk there, but I think that this move here today to bring in ZaDarius Smith really ramps up the possibility that they would draft a cornerback. Now, I would not completely shut the door on them surprising us in the first round and just taking best player available, or even a future quarterback. I think that would be really surprising at this point, but is on the table still for them if they're looking way down the road. But since a lot of the things that they've done have matched up with what this organization has done in the past, including adding a famous pass rusher as they did with Yannick Ngakoue a few years ago, it really says we're probably going to have to draft for need right away, and the biggest need is corner.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the Vikings have 180'd away from the potential rebuild that a lot of us anticipated, and for a while it looked like they were going to do more of a hedge by keeping Kirk but trading Daniil and maybe a couple other guys. But no, they are all in on winning in 2022. That changes the expectation, that changes the way they're going to spend money, and that changes the way they're going to approach the draft, probably trying to find players that can have immediate impacts. And I was looking this up last night at cornerback. I think we were led to believe by Mike Zimmer that young corners aren't always ready to play right away. But I looked this up. The last 5 years, 21 rookie corners have had PFF grades above 70. And that's a very solid starter level grade. That's 4 corners per year are doing that. So if you pick the right guy, it is possible to find someone on the cheap who can contribute right away.
So ZaDarius Smith said the first goal is to win the North. Where does this put them in the NFC North after bringing in ZaDarius Smith and deciding to keep Daniil Hunter?
I still have a lot of concerns about this roster. I think the defense is still extremely shallow. They have positions where they don't have starters or key backups right now, and the offensive line has not improved for the umpteenth year in a row. So it feels a bit like last year, to be honest with you. I mean, have they improved last year's defensive roster on paper? Not really. I mean, they've exchanged Everson Griffin for ZaDarius Smith. They've exchanged Michael Pierce for Harrison Phillips. They've exchanged Anthony Barr for Jordan Hicks. But have they added anything? No. Have they subtracted some things? Yes. Maybe in some cases there's addition by subtraction, the way the defense was last year, but there are still a lot of holes to fill and a lot of similarities to last year's team that went 8-9. So I'm not ready to say they're a division contender, not as long as Aaron Rodgers is in the mix. I still think they're probably number 2.
Yep, I agree, but I would also say that what is to come? What moves are to come on the way? You could still make a trade at any time and surprise us. We know that the Minnesota Vikings always have surprises on the way. So we'll withhold judgment until really after the draft when we have a good look. But I would agree with you that right now they are still second to the Packers, and I think this takes them from a team that may have been closer to the Bears and Lions that you wanted to admit to still maybe a leg up on them for right now. So make sure you listen to our instant reaction to the signing of ZaDarius Smith on the Purple Insider podcast. Visit purpleinsider.com for more written coverage of the ZaDarius Smith signing and much more. And we'll catch you next time, Purple Insider Extra.